Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and today we're getting an update on Omai Gold Mines. Omai Gold is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker OMG and on the OTCQB under the ticker OMGGF. And I'm joined today with the president and CEO of Omai Gold Mines, Elaine Ellingham. And Elaine, it's always great to get you on the show. In this case, it's going to be a big discussion because we're talking about the updated resource that now includes both your Wenot and Gilt Creek projects. Now, this is in Guyana, South America, and this project has already been a project of merit and size, and it just got bigger. So, you put out some news to the marketplace on August the 25th, and it outlines the whole combined deposit now 2.1 million ounces of gold in the measured and indicated category and 4.4 million ounces of gold in the inferred category. So you got 6.5 million ounces of gold in all categories at both deposits. That's a big project. It's a project that also, breaks down into these two different deposits. So maybe for the sake of people listening, let's get into each deposit separately here. Let's break down Wenot and then we'll get into Gilt Creek next. When you look at Wenot, what are the key takeaways you want people to know about this resource?
Yeah, great intro, Shad. Thanks, and good morning. Yeah, so we are obviously delighted to deliver this new resource estimate. And we've been working drilling for the last year, as you know, mostly on the Wenot deposit. So the big increases are actually on the Wenot deposit. It was large before, but we almost doubled it. So I think our inferred went up 130% and indicated up 16%. So yeah, putting our Wenot deposit at about, I guess, 4.7 million ounces. So that is an open pittable deposit. Maybe some of the lower part's going to be underground. And when we work towards the PEA, we'll sort that out onto how to optimize the economics. But yeah, I think one of the things we were drilling, we were looking at putting out our resource in February. And then what happened was we started to get the results back from some of our drilling late last year. And we had these very wide zones, I think we talked about before. And, we're hitting things like 4.5 grams over 57 meters and, 3.2 grams over 68 meters. Absolutely, phenomenal things, the grades for an open pit deposit. So we decided to keep drilling and we're glad we did. So, I mean, this is what, as I said, we kind of pivoted in February and the mandate for the year was, with respect to Wenot, how big is it? Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. I mean, the Wenot deposit, it's a shear-hosted deposit, one of those orogenic deposits, not unlike the big ones in Canada and Ontario and Quebec. And they tend to just keep on giving. They tend to go to great depth. And so this one's quite astonishing because we already have defined it along a 2.5 kilometer strike length. So we believe it still can be expanded more, but as you know, we're going to start moving towards a very material PEA and economic study later this year. I guess one of the other takeaways, Shad, is that, Omai was a past producing mine. And so a lot of people always think, yeah, you're just drilling deep under an old pit and things like that. We've eclipsed that by a long country mile, I think they'd say. And one of the things I take away for this new resource is actually 60% of that resource is above 350 meters, which is pretty shallow for a nice big pit like this.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask you about is the depth component. I saw that comment in there that 60% of it was above 350 meters in depth. Now, there are some open pits that go down 400, 450 meters. So you have been drilling and testing the bottom edge of this, and there is the potential, similar to Gilt Creek right next door, that you could have some even underground components to this. And you are drilling this big, deep hole, as we've discussed in the past, from Gilt Creek over to the depths of Wenot, to prove that thesis or test that thesis a little bit. But just from what you have here, as far as this deposit, do you think there's still potential at depth to keep expanding it, not just along strikes, but even lower into the pit shell?
Definitely. I mean, we tried to bring it down to 400, 450. Actually, just an interesting factoid is the Kalgoorlie mine in Australia is down to, I think, 625 or 650. So it is possible, but it gets a little bit deep at that point. We're not talking that kind of depths, but based on the mineralization we see and have been drilling at Wenot, it clearly increases in grade and the zones get wider at depth. So we probably will do a bit more drilling just to fill in those zones at depth. And either that would bring the pit down to maybe 450, 475, or as I said, with those kinds of grades, you could have an underground component. So we are going to keep drilling going forward, even though we're working on the economic study, because we didn't really close it off on the east end. When we got into these really nice fat zones, we did a lot of focus around there. And so we still have it open at end. And you might say, when you got that many ounces, do you need more? But from a pit design perspective for economic study, if you don't drill those areas, it's going to be considered waste. And of course, we don't believe it's waste. So we got to get some holes in there because obviously their ore and waste ratio is what defines your strip and the economics. So we'll do some more drilling out to the east end to close it off and to just prove that in fact there are continuations of those mineralization along strike, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And since you have a lot in the inferred as well as the indicated, would there be a plan down the road to do some infill drilling to jump categories, move them from inferred up to indicated?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in an environment where, as you know, this project has road access. It's cleared from the old days. The government wants to see this project move forward as they're encouraging the accelerated development of all the large scale mines in Guyana. So, and of course, we're definitely one of those. So, yeah, we want to start doing that work, and that actually will be part of when we do that drilling on the east end. A lot of those holes, we will still extend those to drill on the north side along those fat zones. So by virtue of our drilling, we will be doing some upgrading from inferred to indicated. And then like our plan is to have two drills dedicated to drilling on Wenot, starting really at the end of this week.
All right. Well, we'll definitely keep following along with all the future drilling, but just from what you already have here, it's a great deposit. And also, I would note a higher grade than what we see in a lot of open pit projects because your indicated grade is on average of 1.46 grams per ton gold and the inferred 1.82. So those are solid grades, especially when we're talking with companies that it's a little different, but some of the ones in Nevada or in Mexico, they may be zero point 0.3 grams per ton or zero point 0.2, even that low, versus here a solidly above a gram per ton. Do you want anything else you want to say about the grades of the deposit and the mineralization?
No, I think that we did actually lower the cutoff a bit because, of course, the gold price is up higher. We still used a fairly conservative $2,500 gold price assumption when we did this resource. Actually, if you use the comparable that we used last time, the grades are still over 1.5. And I think as we continue drilling at depth, certainly the grade at the lower levels is going to come up. We're pretty certain of that, to be honest. And yeah, very healthy grades for open pit. And that's why with those kinds of grades, even if your pit's getting deeper, means your strip ratio tends to go up. But at the same time, with those very healthy grades, yeah, certainly at this gold price and lower, these are robustly economic or potentially robustly economic. And hopefully that's all reflected when we get that PEA out. But you were asking at depth. So yeah, we are. One of the things is I've done previously in my career in these orogenic gold deposits is they do tend to have deep roots. That is, you look at any of the deposits in Ontario, Quebec, and these deposits go deep. So we wanted to put a second drill hole into the Gilt Creek deposit, which is just 450 meters to the north, and it's an intrusion-hosted deposit. It's like a cylinder. And so we realized that if we just drilled across that and kept going, that we would be underneath at depth, underneath our Wenot. So the hole has dual purpose. We actually are down at about 1750 meters this morning. And so we did successfully drill across the Gilt Creek, kept going, going, going. And we're just getting into the edge of which certainly looks like the Wenot shear. So we are a full 500 meters below, 500, 550 meters below the known mineralization above. So it's pretty exciting. It's like Christmas every morning, looking and see, are we there yet? Are we there yet? As you know, in geology, Mother Nature has its own agenda, and so is it down there? We don't know, but geology suggests it should be. So if it's down there, I think the key thing that is not going to contribute to our current resource, or that like it's too far below. What it is going to tell us is geologically, does that deposit continue down to a kilometer? And really, with the resources that we've built up at the main on those two deposits, Wenot and Gilt Creek, we're pretty sure that we're looking at an 18, 20-year mine life. But if it's down there too, then it sort of tells you that there's potential for a multi-decade mine, and that's a completely different scenario. both for the country, the government, the people there. It means, jobs for a lifetime, things like that. And also, for developing the project, you know, we all know how you do your discounted cash flow and get your net present value. So, they always say anything past 8 or 10 years doesn't really come into the economic equation. But at the same time, from a building a large asset like this, it's important to know, do we have a 10, 20, 30, 40-year operation? So sorry, long story, but I mean, it is exciting, that hole. And I have no idea if it's down there, but it's exciting to watch.
Well, we're definitely going to keep watching, and I've included an image in the last interview we did that shows the trajectory of that hole and what the plan is. And the point being that at Gilt Creek, there is the underground shear and there is the underground area, and you've drilled through that. You've gone over into the area of Wenot farther down at depth, and if it's there, the proof of concept, like you say, especially let's say if a larger company is looking to partner up with you on this or is looking at the project or just the government themselves, they would say, holy cow, you have this whole underground scenario here. So again, you won't get credit for it in the discounted cash flow model, but people that understand the development side of it will understand this thing is going to be a generational asset. So fingers crossed that you do tag into that system down at depth, but let's pivot over to Gilt Creek real quick, just because this is the underground resources here. And a lot of these actually are in the indicated. You got over 1 million in the indicated and about 600,000 in inferred, but at a higher grade, over 3 grams per ton. Anything else you'd want to say to people listening in about the Gilt Creek deposit and what you learned in this resource update?
Yeah, so we didn't do a lot of work updating it because we only had the one hole in, so it wasn't really material to the resource we've done before. But I think one of the things to remember is when we did that resource, our gold price assumption was 1750 gold price. And I think we're sitting at maybe 3400 or even higher today. So it was conservatively modeled economically. But more importantly, it is big wide zones. So one thing that we're doing is looking at how to bring that into the next PEA. So we're doing some engineering work right now, looking at this is an underground deposit. It's not that deep. The top of it is actually at 275 meters down, which isn't very deep for an underground. So basically, it would be a ramp, a portal at surface, ramp down, and then we're looking probably at large scale, large stope mining. And so I think very large stope mining, a lot of the zones down there, 100 meters wide, 70 meters wide, very compact because it's an intrusion. So you don't have all that lateral development that it creates a lot of cost. So it's a great looking deposit. We did not have it in the last PEA. There are some engineers that believe it's going to be even more economically robust. So yes, bringing that in is important. It has room for expansion. It's significantly large enough as it is. And the most effective way to drill it and expand it is really once you get underground and drill from underground. So for example, that intrusion, the deepest that it's been identified with drill holes with mineralization is down to about 960 meters. It's a intrusion hosted. You would expect the mineralization to continue at depth because that's where it came from. And it's very similar to another deposit in Guyana that's in production called Rory's Knoll. And that intrusion goes down to 2 kilometers. So, and still gold mineralized. So we know that's got a lot of expansion upside. It's just not the efficient use of our capital or our drilling right now. So we're working on that really. And the drill holes we put in, a lot of that, because for an underground mine, you need a lot more information on rock mechanics. And so the hole we did last year and finished just before Christmas, we did all the rock mechanics. We actually used this televiewer system that takes a picture of the whole hole on the outside of the hole. So you can look at all the cracks, the fractures, the veins, and everything. And that allows them to design the underground stope. So yeah, we're accelerating that.
Well, let's talk about how this does all tie together into the upcoming PEA that the team is working on, because the original PEA, if I remember correctly, was only on about 45% of the resources and only at Wenot. It didn't even include Gilt Creek. So now you're going to be bringing Gilt Creek into the mix and a larger resource package into Wenot. So talk to us about all the other work the team is doing to advance things towards this preliminary economic assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think often with the PEAs, you can break it into kind of modules. So obviously we did a PEA last year to build on, But some of the modules, for example, I just said is, for the Gilt Creek, we're already doing the underground mine design or a preliminary that would feed into it. So you can kind of break it into components. Another interesting issue that you would only have with a past producing mine is there's actually an existing large tailings facility that was sort of a state of the art built in about 95, I think. And so we've had some tailings experts out there before, but we've just had a team in there doing a deep dive on the integrity and the status of the old tailings. And we don't have the full report, but we did a little bit of a postmortem on their trip. And it looks like, all of the things that we had hoped for, in fact, look like they hold true. So the integrity of those are good. So that looks like that tailings probably has some capacity. And also the design is such that the tailings dams can be raised once and maybe twice. So as you probably know, when you build a mine, a tailing site, establishing, and checking out and getting permitted a tailing site, building the tailings, big cost item, long lead, long time item. So we're there. Plus the fact that we also had them look at the one past producing pit over the intrusion because we would never intend to go back in that. That one's going to be underground from there. So that's a perfect site for tailings. It's going to be near where the proposed mill site is. The closer things are to your operation, the less cost of moving material around. So they're doing some work on that. Again, that's a step up to accelerate us towards that PEA. We're in good shape on the water studies and some of the baseline studies. We did those over the last 2 or 3 years. So all these different parts kind of feed into it. And as I said, as a past producer, a lot of them you've got a bit of a leg up. So I think we're in good shape.
The benefits of being at a brownfield site. Having the tailings there, it's so important, and especially if you could do a tailings raise on it once or twice, that gives you a little bit longer run rate. And then, yeah, if you can take the old pit and convert it as well, again, a benefit of having a brownfield site. So more studies going on that, but you've done a little bit of the geotechnical and the structural side of things for the underground, but also the environmental and the baselines, and that's setting up the permitting. And that was part of the impetus as well for the PEA, was just to get that whole process, that permitting process going and all the work that has to happen. So do you have a rough guideline for when you think the PEA may come out? What do you think is reasonable?
Well, I think we're aiming for year end, but like everything, this PEA is an important one. It's not a milestone. We're hoping that, and we believe this is going to really map out the path forward for this project. And so, I think we can do it by year end. We might spill into the new year because this is the real deal for moving the Omai project forward.
Okay, just wanted to give people just a rough idea because I'm sure that question would pop up in their minds. So it's probably going to be either by year end or maybe the beginning of next year, but it's an important study because it really is where the rubber meets the road. And then you start all of the work to start jumping the categories up to indicated so you can set up for the PFS and maybe more advanced engineering studies, et cetera. So a lot going on as far as the development side of things, but you're not giving up on the exploration side of things. I know you're an exploration geologist at heart, and so let's also talk about some of the ongoing drilling. You still have drill rigs there on the site, and you still have a plan to use them. So talk to us about exploration, Elaine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 3 drills turning right now, and so we kind of stopped drilling at Wenot while the QP was doing the resource on Wenot. That's the easiest way to make sure that you stay on your timelines. So we have one drill out on what we call the camp zone, which is a long strike of the Wenot, still on that shear structure. And so we had a few drill holes out there and found a couple zones. And so we're trying to quantify that because again, our main thing is we really want to prove that, there are other satellite deposits. I don't think we're going to hit something as big as Wenot. That's a little exceptional. But there is potential for other intrusion-hosted deposits, actually, more like the Gilt Creek. And along strike of Wenot, there are some zones we think we can quantify, so we're just stepping out on those very conservatively. And I'd like to see us try to quantify some of those into the PEA. So we obviously have to work quickly. And then we're up on Blueberry Hill and some of the zones west of the old pit. And again, these are, some of the areas where we've trenched. There's high grade mineralization. And then, as I've always said, they're not million ounce deposits. They're smaller, but they're very high grade. They're near surface. And that the vision we have is this would be sort of front end of your mine plan, higher grade, maybe even stockpiling it while you're building the mill. And those really juice the front end in the first two couple of years of your production. And I think everybody knows the first couple of years of building any mine, when you have potential delays, this, that, or the other thing. And so if you've got some near surface mill feed ready to go. So quantifying a couple of those are really key. As I said, we've trenched them. We've got a couple holes over them that we've done sort of in the fringes of our main programs. And yeah, we're kind of excited about some of those. And it is the fun stuff.
Well, yeah, and you have a slide in your deck, and we've talked about this a while ago, but in addition to the Blueberry area, you have the Snake Pond area, you have the West Extension, West Wenot, Broccoli Hill. I mean, there's all kinds of areas to still go after. That could be, to your point, satellite deposits that feed the beast, or at least optimize the front end of the mine plan, as you say. And if you could stockpile some high grade near surface, it's not going to be a game changer on the longevity, but it would be a game changer on the front end payback period, and making sure you have enough material to process in the very early years. So definitely we'll keep tabs on that. And we've talked about the deep hole, which I think is going to be a game changer for all the reasons we mentioned at the onset, that if you drill through Gilt Creek and at depth down to Wenot and prove that there's proof in the pudding, I think it just sets up the expectation that there's a whole bunch more exploration that could happen at depth there. So definitely a lot on the exploration side. So there's going to be a busy news flow cycle through the end of the year and into the beginning of next year. Anything else you want to highlight, or what are the main catalysts in the batting order that you want people looking out for?
I think it's actually a combination of things because, as I said, we're going to keep going to the east end of Wenot as well. And I think it's about, trying to add some near surface satellite pits. They aren't essential to the economics, but they would definitely create, an even better scenario. And I guess, in our company, we've been very, we're very milestone focused. We kind of get our idea of where we want to be, and it's all heads down and like we just run at it. So, I think right now, I think everything's going to contribute to what we're hoping is a really robust PEA. I would say that the ongoing Wenot drilling, especially to the east, is still, I believe it's still expansion. Drilling some of these satellite zones, they might not impress the market, but I got to tell you, if they're near surface and 3, 4, 5 gram type things plus, it is material to where this project goes. So, and then I think the permitting, like we're stepping forward on that, and the government has been extremely helpful and very clear with us that it's a brownfields project, and so some of them are actually extremely familiar with the project because they worked there or they've known about it and been involved with the project over the decades. So I think that process is going to go fast, and again, it's indicative of how fast this project can move.
Well, there's definitely a lot of moving parts, a lot of things happening in sequence and in tandem. So we'll definitely keep following along with all the news flow here at the KE Report. Congratulations again on a larger resource for both deposits for Gilt Creek and Wenot. 6.5 million ounces of gold in all categories is nothing to sneeze at. And all the development work and all the work the team is doing now feeding into the PEA, hopefully maybe 4 to 5 months out there. So we'll definitely keep following along with that. And for those of you listening in, you can click on the link in the show notes and it takes you straight over to the Omai Gold Mines website to their news section where you too can follow along or sign up for updates that hit your email inbox. Elaine, keep us posted. We'll get you back on soon. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Great. Thank you so much.